这很高兴啊，这个快一点，我们就给他个镜头。好，快一点。Thank you. Good.
President Obama has made his first trip to China as president to meet with Chinese leaders on a range of issues from climate change to human rights.
Hi, President.
Times chief Washington correspondent David Sanger gives us his take on the president's performance.
Well, so far, Jane, I would say that the White House can't be entirely happy with it. You know, they had insisted early on that the Chinese broadcast his question and answer session with the students throughout China. In fact, the Chinese did not. They broadcasted only locally. The second thing that he was hoping for, I'm sure, was a expression from Hu Jintao, China's president, of support for moving to sanctions with Iran if the Iranians don't take the current nuclear deal. And he didn't get that either. President Obama has spoken about sanctions. President Hu said almost nothing about it other than his hope that the entire issue be resolved diplomatically. And then on environment and energy, there were some energy agreements signed, but there were very few specifics about how the two countries would approach the coming conference in Copenhagen on global warming. And I think that was significant because I think one of the big issues ahead for both countries is that they have to go into this conference with at least a relatively common platform if they're going to get other nations to follow along.
David, let's move on to Tuesday's events. The president saw the Forbidden City and the Great Wall, and he and President Hu Jintao made appearance together where they agreed that they would make progress on a whole range of issues, but there were no specifics at all today. Would you have expected any kind of specifics? Is that disappointing?
You know, I guess I would have expected a bit more specifics on the energy and environmental issues that both the Chinese and the Obama administration had agreed from fairly early in their first meetings were central to the future of both countries. This is the third meeting between President Hu and President Obama, and as a result, you would expect that this is the time that they move on to more specific and concrete proposals.
What's your expectation of what will happen next after these meetings? What do you see as the priority? Where do you think that progress can actually be made?
Well, the two big things that the calendar is going to drive up are Iran and the Copenhagen meeting on global warming. On Iran, it seems fairly clear by now that the Iranians are not interested in taking the deal that's on the table, which is the one for them to temporarily move some of their nuclear fuel out of the country, process that would take at least a year and would buy some time on the Iranian negotiations. President Obama has already made it clear he's going to follow a second track now, which is begin to prepare for sanctions. But that only works if the Russians and the Chinese join, and so far there's been very little indication from the Chinese that they're interested in doing that. And remember, the Chinese get probably about 15% of their oil from Iran. On Copenhagen, they're heading into this conference in a month's time. And the big question is, can they come to it with any kind of a common agenda? They still have a little bit of time to work that out, but not at the presidential level.
David Sanger, the Times' chief Washington correspondent, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Jane.